I personally think a lot of it is lack of representation in culture and mass media and all of that. So much of our lives are normalized by what we see every day, what we're exposed to, and the lack of exposure of minority groups or the world that we're trying to build. It's not gonna get there unless we see it every day. Just think about.
Lil' mama only showing love just to take mine. How could you make excuses but can't make time? How I'm supposed to fix your demons and can't face mine? Don't invest in the appearance, need a great mind. Cause she could change the way she look, but she can't change grind. The baddest woman got that hustle that you can't find.
Welcome back to Opinionated, the podcast, Miami edition. I am your host, Joshua Hicks, and as always is my brother, Reid Washington. And today we have a special guest, Miss Ashley.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm well. I'm so good. How are you? It was so nice to be able to see you.
Yes, it's been about what, 3-4 years now?
Since like 2017.
Yeah, because you graduated a year before us. Yeah. So tell the people a little bit about yourself, Ashley.
Yeah, so I am Ashley. I always love giving myself an introduction. It's so awkward. But right now I've been all over. I'm a Midwestern girl at heart. I think that's who I am to my core. But in the professional world, I am an operations manager, director of operations, whatever you want to call me, in a tech startup here in Miami. And I'm also really into the health and wellness realm. And I'm a district manager for a company called Arbonne with that as well.
Mm-hmm. And how are you liking living in Miami so far?
That's a good question. It's where I need to be right now, career-wise, and also where my relationship is right now in my life. We feel very happy being in this part of the world, and the life experiences we're gaining. So I'm enjoying it. But it has its battles, man. Miami is a beast, and you can get swallowed up pretty quick.
Exactly, especially if you don't know who you are, right?
100%, yeah.
Reid wants to live out here in Miami.
This is my second home, so when I get done doing what I'm doing, me and my breast are gone.
They gonna move down.
Let's make some moves. Yeah.
So Ash, tell us a little bit about just like the tech startup company that you're working for right now.
Yeah, so it sounds so corny when we say it, and people usually take a step back and are like, yeah, okay, whatever, but you gotta dream big to do big. And so what our goal is to change the way the world works. So we basically want to take Uber style working, like DoorDash, all of that, which is gig work, and create skilled gig work. So basically anyone, I know you're going to nursing school, you could potentially not be stuck down to an employer. This app could give you the way to control your schedule, when you work, how much you work for, etc. And so right now we're in the dental industry.
Okay.
But we're hoping to expand to literally anything that's a licensed or certified profession. So anywhere from substitute teachers to again hospitals, etc.
I like that. And you say you work for Arbonne? Is it
Arbonne.
Arbonne, and it's the health and wellness. What exactly about it is health and wellness, I should say?
Yeah, so what we essentially do with Arbonne is we teach people basically, you have health class when you're young, and in the world today there's always these latest fads, diet fads. And so what we teach is a lifestyle, not a fad, how to actually know what you're consuming, how to eat clean, not healthy, so focusing on whole foods, etc., and teaching people that because we're in a world where it's go, 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 that you can be in a go, go, go,
still eat healthy
and still
be
eat healthy and still know what you're putting into your body, because that's the biggest thing, is that we live in a world or in a country where there's no regulations. The FDA, from our beauty products to our food, there's less than 20 banned ingredients, where other continents like Europe and so forth ban over 1,500. So what does that say into what we're consuming, which leads to illnesses and diseases. And so it's something that I'm really passionate about, mainly because I did the program when I first started, and that's how I got introduced to the company, and it really changed a lot for me. And because of it, I now am super knowledgeable in a realm that I always struggled with, and then on top of it, I'm extremely confident in my day to day. I never have guilt, which I think is also correspondent with health and wellness.
Yes. Man, I mean, even speaking about health and wellness, but just health in general, we love talking about mental health on this podcast where, we've been in a pandemic, and not even just a pandemic, just being two black males, we've seen how the country has kind of taken a turn a little bit, where now things are being documented on television. It's kind of like starting like a PTSD type of trigger in our minds. Like I told Ree, and I even explained it just recently, like the reason for this podcast was based solely off of watching someone's life get taken on television.
Yeah.
For you, we'll address the elephant in the room. You are one of our first female white guests on the show. But during this whole past year, like how has things kind of like changed in your life, like just seeing things like that being documented on television?
So it's something that this is a great question, because I think that while I have lived and will continue to always live, unfortunately, or most likely, a life of privilege, I am a woman. And I think that also being a woman versus a man, we automatically have some of those maternal instincts when there are injustices around us, right? And so it's always something that once I was introduced to it, because I grew up very much so in a community where no one wasn't like me in the sense, like a cookie cutter small town. But once I was out into the world, I saw it and I understood it. But I think the thing over the past year, which I've said before, is the biggest thing with what's been going on the past year and a half is learning that others still choose to not see it. Like they're making a decision to turn away and not address things head on, where like, you're raised, it doesn't matter generally where you come from. You're usually told like, yeah, like everyone's created equal. You should see everyone the same. You should treat everyone fairly and nice. And then you see people like just preaching that, or the ones who taught you that, but then are choosing not to live up to that. And so that's been the craziest thing for me, is because I'm like, whoa, wait, like I respected you as a human. I've looked up to you. I thought you were a mentor of mine, or you're my family, Sure. And it's like, it's been a hard year, I think, in that sense, because that's something that's been new to me. Obviously, it's not something that's new to you guys, right? You're like, yeah, that's what's been going on. Like, but it's been something that's new to me. And so I feel like I've had a lot of loss in the past year, because people that I've respected and that I loved, I kind of just don't want anything to do with, knowing how they treat others openly, so publicly in the past year.
Man.
Actually, maybe it's not that do it publicly, because at least let's all see your real colors. But to be like so forward, to be that public about it.
That's real. And I think just having that thought about that, or having that your own process with that, and the understanding part of it, because him and I talk about it all the time. People will repost something and just leave it at that and think they're helping the situation. Oh, yeah. Instead of actually, you went to the measures of not talking to certain people no more, just because you was like, you really aren't like that. Yeah, I've seen how you treat people. It ain't my boat right there. I'm not going to float with you on that. Yeah. You know what I mean? So,
because you could talk about it, but at the end of the day, your actions is what proves people right or wrong about you. And, you and I, we've spoken off camera a bunch of times about, this past year and a half. And, you were asking certain questions, or you were educating yourself just on, opening up your eyes. And like you say, for the first time, people now don't have that excuse to say, I didn't know that this was happening, because it's being documented right in front of their eyes. Now people are letting everyone know, I'm choosing just to ignore it. So, I commend you just for saying, hey, I have to cut some people off.
And I think that shows character.
Yeah.
You know, I think sometimes, you know, you can relate to this well, but all a man has is his word.
Yep.
You know, and what you say is just do what you say. You know, you should, Toby, when he had that video, like, just do what you say, because if you don't do what you say you're going to do, you are lying at any extent.
Exactly.
So I think it's the big character thing, too. It shows who that person truly is and what they're willing to do.
Yeah.
You know.
And Ash, like, what do you think is, like, just the biggest problem? Like, why can't you and I be friends? Like, why is that such, like, a hard imagination, like, fathom of thought for people, like, to see a black man or a white woman or just anybody in general? Why is it always based on skin?
I don't know. And I have asked myself that quite a bit. I dated, before I married my husband, quite a few African American men. And I remember, like, never thinking anything of it until we would go out in public, you know, and go on a date or do something like that. And so that was something that was very hard for me to experience, because I was just so naive. I think so much of this past year is, unfortunately, how naive
You were.
not just like
Or
us
just
as like
people.
a group
Yeah.
were to a lot of things until you experience it head on. And so that's something that I continually just never understood, is why not, you know?
Yes.
And I personally think a lot of it is lack of representation
Okay.
in culture and mass media and all of that. So much of our lives are normalized by what we see every day,
Yeah.
what we're exposed to, and the lack of exposure of minority groups or the world that we're trying to build. It's not going to get there unless we see it every day. You know, I mean, just think about,
Influencers are influenced.
yeah, we're so influenced by what we see. So if we don't see it, we're like, oh yeah, like we think that's supposed to be the way it is, but I don't see that every day, so I don't actually know if that's the way it's supposed to be. So I'm kind of put off by it.
Yeah.
You know, so I really think it comes down to representation, which is something that's part of the fight.
Yes.
You know.
And, like, what has, like, been your experience, like, being in an interracial, like, relationship? Like, your husband is Hispanic, correct?
He is. That's a great question. My husband is a white male.
Okay.
But he is Spanish. He's from Europe, so he's white European.
Okay.
But of course he's Hispanic, which is anyone who comes from, you know, a Spanish speaking origin. And so that is another layer of prejudice amongst immigrants. Yeah.
It's like, especially in Miami, right? Like, when you came from the Midwest to move here, like, how was that, like, just being in Miami, like, saying, oh, this is like a melting pot of just different people from all different backgrounds, races, religions? Like, how was that experience?
It's kind of fun
Uh-huh.
to be the minority in the sense of growth.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the times I'm the only one who can speak English in the room, you know, and that's a layer of personal development on its own, to be able to be like, wow, I either need to try my hardest to like order food or I need to just like go home type of a situation. And it's like, are you going to choose to sink or swim? And I think that's a different layer of,
That
you know,
sounds
things.
familiar.
Yeah. Are you experiencing that whenever you're in Miami? But it's so enjoyable. I also love how much culture is here for you to learn about.
Exactly.
That isn't like that and elsewhere in the country, just because here people aren't just from generally one part of the world. They're all from one part of a hemisphere, but they all come from different countries.
Yes.
And I think that that's the most exciting thing about Miami.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm not trying to put all the questions on you, because obviously you're not the representative of just one
totally.
specific
That's okay.
group of people. But, like, what would you tell to people, let's say, who do watch our podcast? Because I've had people DM me who are white, who will ask questions, you know, like, how does it feel or whatever. Like, what would you be able to tell them, like, to grow as a person, like, to expand, like, their mindset towards yes, I grew up in the Midwest, but we can change who we are.
Putting themselves into a
Yeah.
position to
Yeah.
grow and like
I
change.
think that a lot of it is that you need to not just listen to hear, but listen to understand. And I think that's a lesson that you can adapt anywhere in your life. But specifically on these topics in the world right now, I think that's huge. And I think that not even is a thing with like race, but as a woman, like gender inequalities, right? Like if a woman says that she's been sexually assaulted, believe her.
Yeah.
If a man said that they're scared, a black man says that they're scared to get pulled over, like believe them. You're not ever going to necessarily be in their shoes, but you can listen to understand to know that that's fact. Because why would anyone lie about that? Why would anyone lie about these moments and fears for their lives? It just doesn't make sense. So I always just say listen to understand, because you're not going to be in their shoes. But the more we actually do that, the more growth you're going to have. And also just ask the questions. Like if you're like, oh, I heard this, but like this. I remember.
I think people are scared to ask questions too. But what you saying?
But why do you think?
No.
But why do you think they're afraid to ask questions?
I think they know the answer in the back of their head. I think they know what the answer is. They just confirmation.
And it also leads to giving up.
A direct answer, maybe, or
I think a lot of the times it leads to them knowing that they're gonna have to get something up, which is their privilege, once they get the answer.
Yeah, or that underlying factors that are underneath the rug are gonna be on top of the rug. Now they're gonna be on this table. Like,
and like, I also want to say you're kind of like a double minority here, because you're also a woman in tech, right? You're working in a tech startup. Like, how is it being a woman in that type of industry?
So I work for the best bosses in the world, and I am blessed for that. And I know that I'm in a situation that a lot of women haven't had to be in. I've obviously had to do my part to get where I am today, but within my company, I'm the only woman in leadership. In the company, but I was hired on, in the startup world, those who are first will, they claim their spot, they claim their seniority. And so that's essentially what I did. But I mean, I had to work am I allowed to?
Yeah, you're allowed to.
Okay. I had to work my ass off to obviously earn my position within the company that I'll continue to have. But something that my bosses are really, really conscious of is not mansplaining, not steamrolling me, things like that, and being like, wait, is that actually what you wanted to say? I'm worried that I cut you off. And so I work for bosses that are hyper aware of that.
Which makes you feel at home, and you can do your best work, and you can put it out there.
Yep, and I think that's why I show up and I work so hard for them, is because I know I'm respected as an equal.
You have a voice.
Yep. And so that's something I'm extremely grateful for. And it's really funny because my boss reads an insane amount every week. He reads like 1 to 2 books a week. And he just finished Obama's first autobiography, his first part. And there's a portion in there where, he had a pretty diverse cabinet. And he started to notice that the women stopped contributing their ideas. And so like he has like a sub meeting with like the women, and they're like, like we get ignored, and then with what we're trying to contribute, and then a male will come in and say the same thing, and then
he hears them,
and then that idea finally gets heard. And so I think that's something that my boss like brought to my attention. He's like, I never want you to be in that situation. So when it happens, speak up. But I'm also the type of woman that will speak up, right? Like, you're going to listen to me.
I know who I am. You're going to hear me today.
I am speaking.
Yeah. So I think like it's a couple of different things. I know that as we get bigger and I have to work outside of our company, potentially that I'll probably face more. Than what I am now, though.
And like, what would you just tell to like the young women who are, who may be working at a job where they feel like their voices aren't being heard?
Empowerment.
Because it is about women's empowerment, but it should have always been about women's empowerment.
It's Women's Month too. It's so ironic that we're doing that. It's so hard because I never felt like I couldn't do anything. I was raised by some of the best grandparents who were like, you were born with a purpose. You were born with these things that make you, you know, amazing, and these for whatever, you know, like I had my own talent. So I always knew that if I leaned into my talents, like I was unbeatable.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the core, is that you have to lean into what you know, like your strong suits are. Like I know I'm a driver. I know that in a way, I might not be the trailblazer, but I'm a trailblazer. And you have to wake up and tell yourself that every single day. And also, you need to be in a community of people that support you. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not, when I've been around a community that, let's just talk female, that is not supportive, I don't believe in myself. And like when I'm in a community of other women who are like, you've got this, like they want us all to win. And if you don't have that community, go find it. And I think that speaks to anyone, though.
I think energy transfer is very real.
Oh yeah, you're who you are who you're
around, and what the birds of a
feather
flock together.
Yeah.
And I think nowadays we get lost in it because when you're confident in yourself, I think a lot of people try to bring you down, or they say you cocky. It's like, no, you believe in yourself. You found your purpose. Like you preach all the time, and like when you tap into that side, it's like, no, this is who I am, and this is my strong suit, so I'm rocking with it. I know I have to fix this, you know, the weaker side of me as well, you know, and that will come with who you meet, because again, he picks me up where areas that I'm not as good at, and vice versa. So I think definitely, like, we live in that era today where when you believe in yourself, it gets looked at as cocky, or they try to bring always a negative aspect to it. So,
and I mean, like you're saying, people, they do find it as cocky or arrogant. I always like to say I like to flirt in between the line of cocky and confidence, because why not? Sometimes you got to step on little toes to prove that, hey, this is who I am. Not trying to be mean, but you know, I believe in myself, so I'm gonna continue to do it whether you believe in me or not. And I mean, I commend you for, you know, being such a strong woman that you are, because obviously, even though Ree has just somewhat re-met you because he doesn't remember meeting you in college, I believe that you think that Ashley is like a powerful woman,
dope
right?
as hell, and I love the conversation. Like, it went differently like than what I expected. I didn't know what I was expecting, but I definitely, I loved it. I love that woman empowerment. I love that self-confidence. I love that internal drive that you have, and
I
you
think,
speak from, you know, up here instead of, you know.
And I think we're coming from the generation now where we're saying, hey, things that how things used to be is not okay. We're speaking up now. We're speaking for women empowerment. We're speaking for equality of all people, just not one specific group of people. And I think, you know, us holding a conversation like we just did is
I think it's
valuable.
important just to tap in with that. I think it's important that we respect each other. I think we're losing the respect that, you know, for men and women. Like, men don't respect women how they need to. And then vice versa. You kind of tapping into that role where they, you know, women want to be so much this, it's like, I'm going to disrespect you. So I think it's that finding that common ground, that mutual, like, how can we live together? We've done it all our lives, you know, history and stuff like that. So why can't we do it now?
And I think people just need to listen to one another.
Again, to understand.
Everybody's talking, but nobody's listening.
Yeah.
Yep. I think also, you know, I am in a marriage where I am seen as equal. And I feel like I have so much freedom to be who I am, even within a relationship. And so I think that's really hard.
I'm going to touch with you on this one. So I always talk about it. I always touch base with it, but I think today's in relationships and marriages, the other individual does not know how to respect the individual inside the relationship, because it's two individuals coming together to make one, but you guys are still separate, you know. So it's learning and understanding how to respect that person, let them do what they want. But then it comes with that, do you know your partner? Did you take the time to figure out who your partner was? I think a lot of times, like, you feel comfortable, like, I just feel free, but I'm still in a relationship, but I feel free, you know. I feel I could do what I want to do, but I'm still going to respect him. You know, then I'm going to respect him, but I'm going to respect my marriage. So it's like you're respecting both, but you're still having fun with it. And I think that get lost in the midst of, as well. Like, I think people don't understand that. And finding that person for them. But okay, cool. Like I'm still gonna respect, but vice versa. You see what I'm saying? So I love hearing that. Like
Yeah.
I definitely love
key.
hearing that.
And I think that's key to because marriage is very complex, and it's something new every day. But I think it's key so that you have the one pillar, which is your unity, but within that you still have each other in your own individual selves.
And how was it, like, because obviously we're not married, but how was it being, and I won't say a newly couple because you guys have been married, what, 2-3 years?
No, we've actually only been married a year and a half, but
Okay.
we've been together for 5.5.
Okay. And how was that, like, being together in the pandemic? Like, did you ever get, like, tired of each other or what?
It's so funny. So we always say that we've done every extreme or every like type of dating. So we did regular dating for about 6 months when I lived in Spain. We did a year apart, and then we've been like with each other 24/7. And when we were in Seattle, we knew no one. Like it was just each other. It was my country, but it was a whole new world for me as well. And so I think a lot of it is open communication. You know, like, boy, do we get frustrated with each other. Yeah, but we don't have those real arguments, right? It's like the petty stuff. Like, make the bed for once, Ashley. Like, that's what I get told all the time. Like, will you just make the bed? And I'm like, no, I don't want to make the bed. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to get up and like start my day. I don't care if the bed's made. And like, those are little things that we have within our marriage. But other than that, it's just a lot of it is just open communication. And I know that I have someone who, I mean, I wouldn't have married him otherwise, right? I wouldn't have even dated him otherwise.
I feel like I can see him in her, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'm married to a driver. Like, I'm married to someone who's extremely confident in who they are and what they want, and extremely respectful. And so those are the I know who I was, and I wanted someone that was the same way. And I also didn't want. I think a lot of the times people get into marriages or relationships thinking that they're going to change the other person, and there's never been an argument of change, right? Like, or I don't like this about you, like, be this. It's like, you annoy the hell out of me. You're not going to change. So what can we do to get along? You know? And I think that's like the conversations that we have that are different to where like our marriage works. Our relationship works, and I'm allowed to feel free and empowered. I don't know if that makes sense.
Just to touch base on the respect, I think this is just a idea or a thought that men don't have. Like you said, respect. Why do, I think some women, they go for the bad guy at first.
Oh yeah.
And then they want that respectful guy later on once they got their, run-ins with it. Why does that happen?
Well, I think a lot of the times women, it's that old saying, like, we accept the love that we think we deserve. And generally, this is all like very general speak. Yeah. Generally, the bad guy isn't going to treat you that well, right? You're going to get the late night texts. You're going to get when it's most convenient for him. You're going to get this and that. And women just aren't raised in the same way that men are into society. So we think that's what we deserve. Of course, there's always the game as well. The game of I'm going to change him. He's not catchable, but I'm going to be the one to catch him type of a thing. So I think there's also those layers to it as well. But I also think that that's why most women don't actually settle down with them, is because after a while they're like, wait a second, I don't deserve this anymore, Because, I mean, I don't know many women who actually settled down with that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
True that.
Ashley, tell people how they can get in contact with you.
Oh, gosh. Slide into my DMs. Only professionally, please. Instagram's the best way to get a hold of me. My handle's Ashamurph, so ASHAMURPH.
Ashley, it's been a pleasure having you
Thank
on this
you.
show. You have opened probably a few eyes to this conversation that we've been needing to have. He's Reid Washington. I go by the name of Joshua Hicks. This is Opinionated, the podcast, Miami edition. Love, always. As I once said before, comparison is the thief of joy. This past week, I had the opportunity of speaking to an old classmate who couldn't help comparing their accomplishments to others. In that moment, I understood that your individual success bothers people and that not everyone is wishing you well. So this week, I challenge you. Yeah, if 2021 has brought you haters from near and far, find a way to add a couple more to the list before Christmas. Continue to travel the road less taken and be everything in life that people said you couldn't be. As always, God bless. Selah.